At my office promotion announcement, my coworker yelled, "Don't celebrate too soon. She's only here because they couldn't find anyone better." The room fell into an awkward silence as I smiled through my humiliation. What he didn't know was that I had just signed an offer with our biggest competitor, and I made sure his job was the first one on the chopping block. I didn't plan on making a scene. That's not who I am. I keep my head down, do my work, and I don't care much for office drama. But when someone pushes you in front of a crowd, tries to humiliate you just to feel big, there's only so much you can take before you push back. Quiet people don't stay quiet forever. I worked for a logistics company in Fort Worth, Texas for 6 years. Not a huge company, but big enough that people noticed when you moved up. I started as a rep in the customer service department, answering calls, tracking lost shipments, and smoothing out problems for angry clients. It was a job nobody stayed in long. The burnout rate was insane. But I stayed. Not because I loved it, but because I saw something in the company I could grow with. Over the years, I moved into project coordination, then operations. I earned certifications at night while working full-time. My boss leaned on me more and more, and I started getting pulled into meetings with upper management. I never bragged, never tried to be the loudest one in the room. I just made sure I was always the most prepared. Then there was Derek. Derek had been at the company about as long as I had. He worked in ops too, on the same floor. He was one of those guys who always had something slick to say. He dressed sharp, talked loud, told the same 3 jokes in every meeting, and somehow still managed to get credit for other people's work. He had charm, I'll give him that. But no one I trusted ever thought he was reliable. He made mistakes and then laughed them off. He flirted with interns, threw others under the bus when things went wrong, and made sure to be seen at every happy hour with a drink in hand. I tolerated him, but I didn't respect him. Last summer, our regional manager retired out of nowhere. Big position, salary bump, better hours, decision-making power. I knew I had a shot. I had been running point on a few major projects, and my numbers were solid. I also knew Derek was gunning for it. He kept dropping hints around the office like, "Hope you all are ready to report to me soon," and I'm not saying I'm the best fit, but 5 of us applied. The process took 3 weeks. 3 interviews, 1 panel, and a case study. It was intense. I didn't say a word to anyone about how it was going. Derek, meanwhile, wouldn't shut up. He bragged about how his interview went. Claimed he already had lunch with one of the VPs and it was basically in the bag. Then I got the email. I had been selected. My boss pulled me into her office and told me I was the unanimous choice. She said I had a reputation for being calm under pressure and getting things done without ego. She also asked me to keep it quiet until the announcement at the quarterly town hall in 2 days. I said I would. But what I didn't tell her was that I had already accepted a new job the day before. North Core Logistics, our biggest rival in the region. They'd reached out to me after a conference in Austin and said they were opening a new branch in the Dallas, Fort Worth area. They wanted someone who knew the market, knew the routes, the vendors, the clients, and they'd heard my name more than once. The offer was 40% more in salary, a full relocation package, even though I wasn't moving, and my own department. I signed the contract on Tuesday. The town hall was Thursday. That morning, I dressed sharp. Navy blazer, white blouse, heels. My boss had a smile when she saw me. I sat up front with the other managers. Everyone was relaxed, sipping coffee, eating bagels, making small talk. About an hour in, the VP stepped up to the mic and said they had a very special announcement. She started talking about leadership, about people who showed initiative, and how one person had consistently gone above and beyond. Then she said my name. My coworkers clapped, cheered. I stood, waved, and walked to the front. I wasn't nervous. I felt like I had already closed this chapter. This was just a formality. I gave a short speech. Something like, "Thank you to those who've believed in me. I've grown so much here, and I'm proud of what we've done as a team. I look forward to building on that together." Then from the back of the room, Derek shouted, "Don't celebrate too soon. She's only here because they couldn't find anyone better." It felt like someone slapped me. The room froze. You could hear a pin drop. A couple people gasped. Someone laughed, unsure if it was a joke. But it wasn't a joke. Derek was sitting at a table with his arms crossed, staring at me like he'd just scored a touchdown. I didn't flinch. I smiled. I nodded. I thanked the room again and sat back down. I didn't say a word to him. Not that day. Not the next. He thought he had embarrassed me. He thought he'd reminded the office that I didn't deserve it. But what Derek didn't know was that I was on my way out, and that I was about to be the person doing the hiring at the company that was about to take a huge chunk of our clients and market share. And his name? Well, let's just say I made sure it was never even considered. After that town hall, things at the office got weird. People were friendly to my face, but I could tell they were walking on eggshells. Some weren't sure if they should congratulate me or pretend like nothing happened. A few close coworkers pulled me aside to say Derek was out of line. One even said, "You handled that better than I ever could have." But most just kept their heads down. That's how it is in corporate. People don't want to pick sides unless they have to. Derek, though? He walked around like nothing happened, still cracking jokes in the break room, still trying to act like the big man. I caught him once leaning against the copier, telling someone she got it because they needed to fill a quota. That's when I knew he wasn't just bitter. He was trying to poison the well before I officially stepped into the role. But I wasn't sticking around long enough to deal with that. On the side, I'd been meeting with North Core's executive team, planning the DFW expansion. They were aggressive. They didn't just want to compete with my old company, they wanted to dominate the region. And they wanted my input on how to do it. So I gave it to them. I handed them everything I knew: vendor weaknesses, regional bottlenecks, which managers coasted, which sales reps were barely hitting quota. I didn't give them proprietary data. That would have been illegal, but I gave them strategy. And in that strategy, I slipped in one key thing: don't hire anyone from my current department. Especially not Derek. North Core loved it. Said it showed strong judgment. My official start date was 3 weeks out. In that time, I watched Derek get cockier. He must have thought I was nervous about taking on the role, because one afternoon he showed up at my desk and said, "Hope you're ready to be blamed for everything that goes wrong now." I looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "Oh, I'm more than ready." What I didn't say was that the HR rep was already finalizing my departure paperwork, and my exit would be announced right after the next payroll cycle. That Friday, something unexpected happened. I got an email from an old coworker, Stephanie, someone who left last year for a job at a vendor company. She said she heard through the grapevine that I was going to North Core. I hadn't told anyone. I asked how she knew. She said Derek had been bragging that I was about to jump ship and was probably taking people with me. Said he claimed I was trying to poach his contacts and steal clients. That wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. My non-compete clause was tight. If the company believed I was trying to recruit people before I left, they could sue me. So I did what I had to do. I called HR and said, "I'd like to move up my departure date." They were surprised but agreed. I told them I'd stay through the week to make the transition smooth. No one questioned it. On Thursday, my boss called a team meeting and announced my resignation. She said I'd accepted a leadership position elsewhere and wished me well. Derek didn't clap. He just stared. After the meeting, he followed me into the parking lot. "You're going to North Core, aren't you?" he asked, standing too close. I didn't say yes or no. I just smiled and said, "I think you'll be seeing a lot more of me than you expect." And I got in my car and left. But that's when the real revenge started. 2 weeks into my new job at North Core, I was buried in work. Hiring, training, setting up vendor contracts, planning routes. We were building everything from scratch. It was chaos, but the kind I liked. And the best part? My team. Every person I brought in was sharp, humble, and hungry to prove themselves. I didn't go after people from my old job, not yet. But I made it clear we were open for business and looking for talent. Then something strange happened. I started getting LinkedIn messages from people at my old company, some I barely knew. A warehouse lead, a junior analyst, even a couple of sales reps. They were all polite, but the message was the same. "Heard you're running the new North Core branch. Any chance you're hiring? I didn't reply right away. I wanted to know what was happening back there. That weekend, I met up for coffee with Sabrina, a former coworker I trusted. She told me Derek had been acting like a king since I left. Said he was the only one who knows how things really run, and bragged that management would have no choice but to promote him now that I was gone. He even told people he turned down an offer from North Core, which was total crap. But here's where it got wild. He'd actually applied to North Core 3 times, under slightly different titles. He must have thought no one would notice. I pulled his application from our system. He had changed his email, left off his current company, and used a slightly different version of his resume. Same experience, though. Same mistakes. I flagged it quietly, and our recruiter removed it from the pile. A week later, I got a call from my old boss, Marta. She didn't sound mad. She sounded tired. She said Derek had created a toxic atmosphere since I left. He'd been angling for my job, but leadership didn't trust him. He was making bold claims and undercutting his teammates to try and stand out. It was backfiring. Marta asked if I knew anything about him applying to North Core. I paused for a second. Then I said, he applied here without telling anyone. Tried to go around your back. That's not someone I'd trust. She didn't say much after that. Just, thanks for the honesty. That same night, I got another message, this one from a mutual friend still at the company. All it said was, Derek just got pulled into a closed-door meeting with HR and Marta. He looked pissed. 3 days later, Derek was gone. No announcement. No farewell email. His desk was cleared over the weekend. His keycard access was shut off by Monday. But he wasn't done with me. When I heard Derek was gone, I didn't feel relief. Not yet. Something about it felt unfinished. I knew the guy well enough to know he wouldn't leave quietly. He'd always been the type to throw one last punch on his way out. And I was right. The first thing I noticed was that someone had started calling vendors I worked with at North Core, asking questions. Weird questions. One logistics partner told me someone had called pretending to be from my team, asking about rates, trying to get details about our contracts. When the rep pressed for a name, the guy hung up. Another vendor forwarded me an email. It had been sent from a Gmail account with a fake name, asking about any red flags they'd had with me during my time at the old company. Said it was part of a confidential background check. The thing was sloppy, but it rattled me. This wasn't just petty now. This was targeted. Then my recruiter came to me with something serious. She had a friend at another company, one we were in talks with for a huge partnership. That friend told her off the record that someone had warned them not to work with me. Said I was disloyal, aggressive, and had a history of violating confidentiality. My stomach dropped. That was slander. And if any of it stuck, it could cost me real money and future deals. I started to connect the dots, and every single lead pointed back to one person, Derek. I didn't have hard proof yet, but I had something better, a connection inside the HR department at my old company. Let's call her Paige. Paige and I weren't close, but we'd worked on a diversity initiative together and had a lot of mutual respect. I reached out, kept it casual at first, just checking in. Then I asked, off the record, was there a reason Derek left so suddenly? She hesitated, then typed. Not supposed to say anything. But yes. Internal complaint plus evidence of policy violations. He pushed it too far. Not the first time. I didn't press. I didn't need to. That same week, I sat down with North Core's legal and security teams. I told them what had been happening, the fake calls, the emails, the whispers. They took it seriously. Corporate types don't play when reputation is on the line. Within 48 hours, they traced 2 of the spoofed calls back to Derek's registered LLC. Some shady little consulting firm he'd set up a year earlier. He thought using it would cover his tracks. It didn't. I gave legal the go-ahead to issue a cease and desist. But I didn't stop there. I knew Derek didn't have many connections outside our industry. Logistics in this region? It's a tight network. And while I'd never stooped to spreading lies, I wasn't going to protect him from the truth, either. I started making calls to recruiters, vendors, even conference organizers. I didn't badmouth him. I simply told the truth when they asked what happened. That he'd tried to sabotage my promotion, humiliate me publicly, then apply to the same company I'd moved to, under false credentials. That he was warned, then terminated. People listened. This business doesn't forget betrayal. Within 2 months, Derek's name was radioactive. His website disappeared. His social media went silent. The last I heard, he'd moved to a smaller town outside Houston, trying to freelance as a supply chain strategist. But I wasn't done. He needed to know what it felt like to be on the outside, watching everyone else move forward. So I sent him a message. Just one line. You said not to celebrate too soon. I'm celebrating now. After I sent that message, I didn't expect a reply. But 2 days later, he wrote back. It was long, rambling. He blamed me for everything. Said I poisoned people against him, said I stole the promotion he earned, said I ruined his career, out of jealousy. He even claimed he was in therapy now because of what I did. At the end, he added one last line that made me pause. You didn't win. You just burned the whole place down so no one else could have it. And you know what? He wasn't completely wrong. In going after Derek, I didn't just burn his bridges, I lit a match under mine too. After he was terminated and the dust settled, I noticed a shift in how certain people looked at me in the industry. Some admired me for what I'd done. Others kept their distance. I was now the woman who took a guy down, and that title stuck. The truth is, I had become someone I didn't even recognize during all of this. I wasn't always cold or calculating. I used to be the one who stayed late to help, who trained new hires without being asked, who looked the other way when someone messed up, because I knew we all made mistakes. But something about that day, standing up in front of everyone, getting humiliated while doing nothing wrong, changed me. I didn't want to be walked on anymore. So I hit back. And I hit hard. But it cost me something, too. The next year at North Core was profitable but lonely. I couldn't tell who was real and who just wanted to be on my good side. Every move I made was watched. Every mistake, even small ones, got whispered about. People respected me, but they were also afraid of me. One of the executives I worked with, Ben, pulled me aside after a meeting one day and said something I'll never forget. Just be careful not to become what you hate. Otherwise, next time, someone like you is going to come for you. It hit hard, because he was right. I had set out to protect myself, to fight back, to show that I wouldn't be bullied or disrespected. But somewhere along the way, I started playing the same game Derek did. Just smarter. So, what's the end of the story? Derek never bounced back. I checked once. His LLC dissolved, his LinkedIn deleted, his name never came up at any major events again. I stayed at North Core for another 2 years. Then I left. Started something on my own. Smaller, quieter, with people I trusted. I don't speak publicly much anymore. I let the work speak for itself. And when I think back to that town hall moment, him yelling across the room, everyone staring at me, I realize it wasn't just the day I lost my patience. It was the day I decided I'd never let anyone humiliate me again. Even if it meant becoming a little colder, a little sharper. I didn't celebrate too soon. I celebrated after I burned the road behind me. And I never looked back.